Welcome back to Down Under Homesteading Adventures. In today's video, I'm going to show you the best and worst trees that you can build out of in the outback Queensland, Australia, and share some tips and tricks along the way that I have learnt or a couple of old timers had shared the information with me. The first tree on this list is a bull oak tree. They are not a good tree to build out of. They're a terrible tree to build out of. Some people call them bull oak, some people call them blue boxer, but they're a bull oak tree. As you can see, the white ants are already eating at the tree where the cracks are. They are not at all, I would never build out of bull oak trees ever. They are good firewood timber. They burn really hot. They create very nice big hot coals, so they are a good tree for your fireplace, but I would not use them to build out of. Next tree that I wouldn't build out of is red gums. I know a lot of people who mill these. The only reason I don't like them is when you cut them, they bleed. It's just the sap is like red, so when you cut them, the sap just pours out of them. But white ants love these trees. Every time you cut one of these, they're usually hollow and they've got white ants' nest in the middle of them. But they're a very pretty tree to have just sitting in your paddock. I wouldn't have them sitting over your house because these things love to drop their limbs all the time. So I'd only have them in a paddock. They look very pretty. They are a very beautiful tree, but I would not use them for a building material. I know a lot of people who do build out of these, but I would not. That's just my opinion. The next tree that I wouldn't build out of is the white gum. I just wouldn't cut them down or use them because where I am, they're very rare. I only have a few on the property and I don't see many of these around. So I wouldn't use these at all. They are a beautiful tree, but like the red gum, they're just so brittle and they break so easily. So this is another one on the list I would not use to build it. I don't know why would you use this tree. It is a good looking tree, but paper bark are just not really good for anything. They love to, when there's a bushfire, catch on fire because they're a paper bark tree. But yeah, I would never use a paper bark tree to build out of. One of the best external trees to build out of is an ironbark. These things are just meant to last. If you cut these guys down and you measure how long you want it and run your chainsaw down the freaking bark and you get your crowbar and you go around the edge to loosen the bark off from the actual log, if you do it right, you can actually use the bark for like a pot plants or like, put plants in. If you don't, you just, throw the bark into a pile. It turns into a, that American chip tarkies. They just curl up, but they are one of the best external trees that you can use. They are just such a hardy timber, and I love ironbark trees. They're just such a beautiful tree. Last tree on the list of being a good tree to use is a cypress tree. They're not really good for external because you have to use a decking oil on them because they do get water rot. That's the only thing what lets these trees down is they do get water rot. Compared to the ironbark don't get water rot. They do, but not as bad as cypress does. Cypress does love to get water rot, but they are a beautiful tree. They're such an easy tree to work with. Only problem is when you do slab these guys, you do have to pre-drill them because they do love to split. I wouldn't use anything except ironbark and cypress trees because cypress is just a really good timber and so is ironbark. The rest of them are just, I wouldn't waste my time, but same with ironbark, you should debark these guys because they get the little grubs what get inside of them and they just ruin a beautiful tree because, if you don't cut them down and debark them, they're just going to be an ugly looking tree if you don't. But yeah, I would debark these guys, let them sit for a while to let them dry out. Maybe something shady so they don't dry out too much and split because these guys do love to split. But yeah, I love them. They're amazing. I hope you guys got some helpful information out of this. If you did like the content, consider subscribing, leave it a like. And if you didn't really understand what I was talking about, is just, I wouldn't use gums, bull oaks, paper bark, all that. I would use cypress and ironbark. If you're going to have something outside, I would use ironbark because it's just a very hardy timber. Please debark the bloody log, don't leave the bark on the log, because it just destroys a beautiful tree, and you get all these grubs what dig into the bloody wood, and you end up with this ripply effect. Same with the cypress. Please just debark them. If you debark them, leave them somewhere shady and let them dry out, they will be a good timber. They'll last you forever. Cypress is such a good timber because white ants don't really like it, but they do have an issue with water rot. Ironbark doesn't really get affected by water. That's why you see farmers splitting ironbark and using them with fence post. Anyway, hope you like the content and have a good one.